If you're watching this video, then you have mock exams coming up, and I'm going to be going through the exact step-by-step process that you are going to want to take to make sure that you're going to be getting the grades that you're looking for in your mocks. This is super important, particularly if you're in year 12, where these mock grades are going to be what you send off to universities on your UCAS application. Even if you're in year 10, you still want to be getting those grades that you are looking for in your mock exams, and I'm going to be taking through what you should be doing before, during, revision, and then the day before the exam, and during the exam, and after the exam as well. So we're looking at 5 different steps. Let's get started. Before the exam, you obviously want to be familiar with the format. Now, in a lot of cases, you won't have actually done a full exam before sitting your mocks, so it is really important that you do actually know what's coming up, that you do know, for example, that in A-level economics you have multiple choice questions, or similarly in all the A-level sciences you're going to have multiple choice questions. If it's GCSE English, you need to know what questions are coming up, what texts you're going to be assessed on. It's those sorts of things. And ask the older years. Ask them whether your school uses past papers or whether the teacher writes their own questions. If your school uses past papers, so for example, if you are in year 12 and you have learned all of paper 1 for A-level biology, and your mock exam is going to be last year's paper 1 for A-level biology, then have a look on the student room at what people were saying came up in that paper. It's going to help you focus your revision, and it's going to allow you, particularly if you're in year 12, to perform to the best of your ability to make sure that you are actually able to hit the grade that you want to be hitting in order to apply to those universities that you are looking to apply to. Now, similarly with this, have a look, make sure you do know the full format, make sure you are aware of the timings, how that works, how you're going to be sitting it. And then what I would do is, for each of the subjects that you're going to be sitting a mock in, what I want you to do is I want you to write out all of the different topics that you're going to be tested on, because obviously you're not going to be the entire subject. You know, if you're in year 10, year 12, you've only covered 1 year worth of content versus the 2 years that are going to make up your final GCSEs or A-levels. So write down all of those topics that you're going to be tested in and rank them in accordance for each subject of your confidence in your ability to answer questions on them. So the factors that play into this are, firstly, your awareness of the actual information. Do you know the knowledge? Are you aware of the content itself? And secondly, your ability to apply that content to exam style scenarios, because sometimes you might be very confident in a certain topic area, but you're not very good at actually answering the questions on that topic area. Those are 2 very different things. So rank each of those topics in order and do this for every single subject. If you have got the time, so if your mocks are more than a week away, I want you to, as well as ranking them in terms of sort of priority, so with 1 being I know this really well, and however many topics you have, that last number being this is the one that I need to focus on the most, you're also going to think about, okay, what actually is the problem? Do you just not know the content? Do you find it really hard to answer questions based upon this content? Have a little why and just write that down, because that's going to help you focus your revision even more, to make sure that if it's a subject where you know all the knowledge, you're not focusing your time on the knowledge, you're focusing your time on the application of that knowledge. And that is where you're getting into this sort of study smarter, not harder realm, where you're actually going to be able to put everything into practice. And if you can as well, do give yourself a little predicted grade for each of those topic areas, because for some of them you're going to be doing really well. Your predicted grade might be an A star, a 9. But for others, you might be finding it a lot more difficult. You might be looking at a 6, you might be looking at a B. You've got to be realistic, but this is going to give you a baseline, and it's where you're working from. So while you're revising, the general rule for mocks is you want 60-40. That is 60% of your time spent on past paper questions and practice questions versus 40% of your time spent on knowledge recall. So the difference in this is, for example, flashcards, blurting, mind map, that's all knowledge recall. Anything where you are attempting questions, whether they are from a past paper or whether they are even from textbooks or videos or using online platforms that create their own questions, that all goes into your 60% of actually practicing questions. Making sure that at least 20% of this 60% is going to be you actively trying past papers. Now, there's a bit of a concern where, okay, I'm doing mocks, and let's say your mock is a full paper 1 of the exam that you're going to be sitting next year. You might be thinking, I don't want to waste these past papers. First and foremost, you're probably not going to remember it the next year, like all of the steps, all of the responses. Secondly, that is more of a concern at GCSE. At A-level, you've got to be treating year 12 mocks pretty much like A-levels, because they are that important, because they are what you are sending off to universities. If you underperform in your year 12 mocks, you're not going to be able to apply to the universities that you want to. So in that case, it is very, very important that you do use past papers and that you do go through them. If you're in year 10 and you're thinking, I just want to save them all for GCSE, that is slightly valid, but you need to at least practice one. You need to at least, right before the exam, practice a full past paper under time conditions to make sure that you can sort of learn the timings, and you know, particularly if it is going to be a really sort of rushed is the wrong word, but one where you have little time relative to what you need to do, or one where you personally feel like you end up running out of time, you need to feel what it feels like to have to prioritize and to have to decide, okay, this is what I'm going to spend my time doing, but I'm going to leave this other bit, for example. So there's a very good system of 3 layers that you can use as you're revising for your mocks. Layer 1 is fast notes, and this is where you are condensing all of the information about a topic into a single sheet of paper. Now, the way that I like to do this is I will have my sheet of paper, and I will basically section off the first 3 quarters, and that's where I'm going to condense all my knowledge, and I will leave a quarter at the bottom, and this will be for every single topic that I do. And as I'm going through past papers, as I'm going through past paper questions, I will add to that little bottom quarter anything that I sort of get wrong as I'm doing actual questions. So for example, I might get a definition incorrect, I will write it in that bottom quarter. I might be constantly forgetting a certain equation, write it in that little bottom quarter. So these are basically pre-made cheat sheets that you can then look at right before your mocks for a certain subject. And what I will say is always break it down topic by topic. If you feel like it's a very, very big topic and you can split it in 2, then do that as well. But that is layer 1. The second layer is you're doing active recall. So that is where you can either convert this cheat sheet into flashcards, or what you could do as well is you could try and remember as much as you can from this cheat sheet. A really good way that I would like to use them is I would read over them all sort of at once, and then I would just sit and I would explain and I would talk through all of the different processes, all of the different content ideas that are on that sheet of paper. And then I would go back to it, I would think, okay, have I left anything out? Is there anything I missed off? Is there anything I got wrong? Then I would move on and I would do it to the next one. And I would do it for all of those sheets that I have for a certain subject. And then I would go back to the first one and I would blurt each one. So it is a lengthy process, but it will get everything into your head. It is pretty much foolproof in terms of your memory retention, because you're utilising so many different study techniques, you're tackling the same content from lots of different angles, and that's essentially what you need to do in order to be able to memorise it for the long term. And then the third layer is always, after you have actually learnt the content, you want to be applying it in a past paper question. So go to Physics and Maths Tutor, go to Cognito, go to Seneca, go to Maths, go somewhere where you're going to be able to find question packs related to the subject, the topic that you're currently doing, and then just try a couple of them, making sure that when you do go to a past paper pack, so it's a bunch of questions that are from past papers, and you've not got the explicit timing of doing a full past paper, you are looking at the number of marks that that question has, and basically giving yourself that many minutes to answer it. If it's a 1-mark question, generally give yourself 2 minutes rather than just 1, but you need to be, because too many students will practice their question packs and they won't give themselves constrained timing. They'll get used to answering questions in longer periods of time than they actually have in the exam, and then wonder why they're not able to finish the exam fully. You don't want to be in that position. You want to be implementing time constraints from the second that you start doing past paper questions. As you are in the week or 2 weeks that you have for mocks, there are some strategies that you can implement that are going to make it a lot easier for you to get used to the process of being in an exam season, and that therefore are going to convert into you getting better grades and doing better across all of your mock exams. The first is I would recommend studying in roughly 90-minute blocks. This is because in an exam you have 90 minutes to concentrate. Now, if you're not used to doing this, you're going to find it very hard to concentrate for that long and to be able to do that sustained across all of the mock exams that you're going to have. So if you can do 90 minutes on, 30 minutes off, that is a really, really good way to make sure that you are training your ability to sit there, to focus, to stay concentrated for that length of time. But you're also giving yourself the ability to therefore build doing practice papers into your revision a lot more easily. And what I will say is try and do 1 timed past paper per day. Now, generally, if you're doing this in the week of mocks, then I would do a timed past paper either for the exam that you have the next day or the exam that you have in 2 days' time, to make sure that you're doing something right before the exam, it's fresh in your brain, you remember all of the processes that you implemented, you know the timings really well. And a lot of people don't like to do the past papers, but obviously that is going to be the best way to give yourself a bit of practice and to make sure that you actually know how to answer the questions that you are going to be facing in the exam itself. And what I will say is also allocate about an hour, half an hour to an hour at the end of your day to review the mistakes that you made that day. Because what you should be doing is when you make a mistake in a past paper question or in a past paper or in a practice question, note it down in a little mistake log. Now this can either be a notebook, it can be a Word document on your computer, it can be whatever you want it to be, but it's a list of mistakes that you made grouped by subject and then within that by topic. And every time you make a mistake, think, okay, so what was the question? What was your wrong answer? What did you actually get wrong? Was it that you misapplied a formula? Was it that you didn't know a definition properly? Was it that you didn't read the question properly? Think what was the correct answer, and crucially just identify why did you mess up. Note it down, and then at the end of a day, when you have that sort of half an hour to an hour that you've blocked aside, then you're going to go back to all of these questions that you noted in your mistake log, all of these things that you got wrong, and you're going to reattempt the question. 9 times out of 10, you will probably get it correct, but sometimes you won't get it correct. And that is where you see that there is actually an underlying miscomprehension somewhere. There is something that you genuinely don't understand that you actually need to go back to, and you need to be thinking, okay, I need to see the knowledge of this, and perhaps I need to watch some videos of people answering questions so I can see where in my methodology, where in my thinking I'm going wrong. The day before an exam, if you've been implementing this strategy, you should not have to cram. You should be able to review your mistake log. You should be able to have a look at your one-page summaries, perhaps do the Feynman technique, so try and speak them out loud, or do some blurting, write down everything you can remember about them. And what I would also do is attempt a couple of past paper questions. You can even attempt a full past paper if you're the kind of person who likes to do a full past paper the day before the exam. And all of that is going to make sure you're on the right track. You might come up with, oh, I actually don't know this topic area, I don't remember this little bit. Then you've got the time to go away, to watch some videos, to read through your textbook, to attempt some more questions, to just consolidate that last bit of knowledge in your brain. And crucially, I know everyone tells you this over and over again, but sleep is the most important thing. You cannot process information unless you sleep. So what I would say is stop revising at least 2 hours before bed, get your solid 8 hours, even if that means sacrificing a couple of hours of revision. You would rather do that because the content that you're going to remember, you're actually going to remember. The content that you've learned, you'll remember if you sleep. The content that you learn as a trade-off from sleeping, you're not really going to remember the next day. And in fact, doing so harms your memory retention of the content that you'd learnt previously. So it's sort of a lose-lose situation. Always prioritise sleep. With the exam itself, what I will say is that there is no ideal way of tackling the paper. Everyone is going to be different, but don't fall into the trap of thinking that you have to do everything in the order in which it appears. You don't have to do question 1 followed by question 2 followed by question 3. In a subject such as English, an essay-based subject, it makes sense to do them chronologically. You don't have to, but it makes perfect sense for you to do that. In a subject that is more like geography, like maths, like the sciences, if a question looks hard, move on to the next one. Build up your momentum. Go through, answer the things that you can, and then you can go back to those harder questions. Once your brain is more warmed up, you have a bit more momentum, you're feeling a bit more confident in your abilities. That is the way that you're going to see success in those papers. If there is one thing that I can get through to you, after your exam, do not spend ages and ages talking with your friends about their answers. It is just going to breed anxiety. It is going to make you feel more stressed. It's going to make you feel like you've done worse than you actually have. A lot of the times you'll take what your friends have put as gospel and what you have put as definitely incorrect, and that is going to make you more apprehensive for the upcoming exams. Don't do that. Have a bit of a debrief if you want a bit of a debrief, but don't focus in on it too much. And if you know that you're the kind of person who's going to engage in a post-exam debrief and then absolutely spiral and think you've got everything wrong and not want to revise for the next exam, just walk home. You will survive. It's like 1 week or 2 weeks and then everything will be fine. Now, what you should also do is give yourself a little bit of self-reflection. After an exam, just think to yourself, as you're walking home perhaps, did I achieve what I wanted to achieve in that exam? Did I manage to answer all of the questions? If not, why? How can you change the way that you're doing your timing to make sure that you are able to attempt most of the questions? Did you find that you actually didn't have the knowledge to answer some of the questions? Why was that? Did your revision not go up to scratch? Did you miss out certain areas? Just really have the time to think about yourself, your own performance, and crucially, if you find that there is something that went wrong, then you need to be coming up with okay, this is what went wrong, so this is what I'm going to do to prevent that happening in my subsequent exams. This trains your metacognition. Top scorers, they always think about what happened, how to improve it, and just if anything went wrong, how they're going to solve that, and if anything went well, how they're going to make sure that that goes well continuously in all of their future exams. So those are my tips for your mock exams. If you are taking them, best of luck. Let me know in the comments if you have any more specific questions, if you want me to focus on mocks for a specific subject. I'll see you all in the next video.